All right, welcome in alongside Ashley Nicole Moss and Bill Reiter. I'm John Gonzalez. We're back, gang. Great to see both of you. Can you believe it? We're almost halfway. This is basically the halfway point of the season. We've done half of it.
Listen, I don't know if you guys know this, but that's because the Earth is spinning faster on its axis. So time by byproduct is faster. Just want to put that out there. No, that's not this kind of show, but if you want to make it that show, we can. I have that information.
I didn't know.
I was told there'd be no science, certainly no math. I can't handle that. But I can't handle some basketball.
What about the aliens and the UFOs? Are we going to hit that too? Or is that different?
If you believe Twitter, they already visited Miami a few weeks ago. So
I mean, I've lived in Miami. Yeah, they're residents. I know. I remember.
We'll have to hit that on the adjunct show to this one. We'll get into aliens and Earth spinning at another time, but we do have basketball, and I wanted to revisit the PASCAL SIAKAM trade because the last show that we did together, it was breaking news in the middle of the show. We didn't totally get to break it down, so you had to leave to do HQ. But so we're going to talk about that and how it may or may not realign the Eastern Conference. But let's just start with the trade itself. I've had a couple days to think about this. Okay. I'm in. I'm on board with this trade for the Pacers. I think it's great for Indiana. I was looking at the draft picks. Like initially we saw 3 first-round draft picks, but 2 of them are in 2024, and a lot of people are down on this draft. And one of those picks will be the lesser of Houston, Utah, Clips, and OKC. So it's going to be pretty late in the 20s. Then the other one is Indy's own pick. So that should be like, in the 20s somewhere. They had to give up Bruce Brown, but I love this because I think he's going to be a really good fit. He loves to run. They love to run. I'm in.
And let me add, we didn't know. We presumed that he was going to stick around. That kind of made sense, right? You're not going to give what you're going to give away if he's not going to stay. But now that's the thing. He's going to be there. And so the added context of the Pacers aren't going to recruit a guy like that in free agency. But if you recruit him through the trade and he's willing to take the money because now he's there, that's just an added reason you do. I love it. I'm not sure that they're not top tier. They're not top. Like I think it's in some order. It's probably Boston for me. Then it's Bucks, whatever. Then it's Philly, somewhere in there. But Ash, I don't know. I don't like those Knicks. It may not be knocking on the door. They might be in line now, knocking on the door. Maybe.
I feel like for me, I'm not 100% sold on Halliburton, Miles Turner, and Siakam right now as the big 3. And I use that term loosely because I feel like it's overused in the NBA. But I think I still have to see how the 3 of them play together, how this works. I don't think it's going to be atrocious. I don't think it's going to be something that's going to take them a lot of time to get acclimated. But again, my bigger question is going back to the report, the thing that they had said, the sources and executives anonymously, they believe the time is now. The window is now. But the window for what exactly? Because when we had this conversation last show, the top 3 teams in the East, I think we all collectively agreed the Pacers aren't getting through them. So exactly what's the ceiling for the Indiana Pacers? Like, what do they think that the window is? It is a second round exit? Is it a conference championship? Like, what are we talking here?
I think it's a longer window now, right? Because if Siakam's going to be there, it's a young team. Look, I think there's like a Miles Turner question, how he fits with Siakam and what that looks like. And I think the better comp is almost I know we're going to talk about it some other time. It is the Timberwolves. Like the Timberwolves are supposedly really good right now over in the Western Conference. Right now,
why'd you say supposedly?
Bill's oddly down on the Timberwolves.
Well, because they're this. Here's what they're this team in reverse, right? Timberwolves. They're like a mirror of each. Timberwolves, amazing defensively, not great offensively. Have a young star. I'm not sure every piece fits together, including Cat. Different conversation, or maybe it's the same conversation. This team is amazing offensively. They are not very good defensively. You've got to be both to be an NBA champion. Maybe Siakam improves that.
True.
But just like looking at okay, do we buy Halliburton to long-term star? Like, are we all sold on Tyrese? Legit.
Absolutely. I think I was a big Halliburton guy when he was in Sacramento. To see what he did last year when he came in, the team wasn't very good last year. This year, though, they really surprised me and taken a step forward. And those concerns that you guys had about like the fit and integrating Siakam over these last couple of days, the more that I've thought about it, the more that I think that it's the perfect team for him because Indiana, as we all know, loves to run. They're second in the league in pace. Somehow the Wizards are ahead of them just slightly.
The Wizards should be first in anything. Whatever they're first in, the Wizards doesn't count.
You can toss the Wizards.
Actually, when they played the Knicks last night, it actually mind blew me a little bit that they play a faster pace than the Knicks. It just seemed like they don't play at all. Like, but whatever.
Exactly. But the Pacers pace is legit. I mean, we've seen them use their offense to win games. So they like to get out and run. Guess who's third in the league in transition points?
Oh, bring those stats.
It's PASCAL SIAKAM. He's going to fit perfectly. They like to run. He likes to run. And the more I thought about the Turner thing, he really does. I mean, he shoots a ton of threes. He's going to space the floor. I don't think he's. Yeah, it's not like a Gobert situation where he's just parking himself in the paint. So that's why I think it's going to be good. And I also like the fact that they didn't really handicap themselves with those picks for the future. They still can control bringing people in, moving people out. Maybe there's another deal for them to be made. They were talking about Buddy Hield on an expiring contract. That's potential. But this whole idea of pre-agency where we all know, I mean, like Indianapolis is a nice city, right?
I mean, dude,
nobody's going there as a free agent.
Yeah, it is nice.
Right. So if you can get Siakam now, you do that.
But do you think that one of them will have to give a little bit on how they play their game? Will Siakam have to reduce how fast he plays the game in order for Miles Turner to continue his three-point percentage and vice versa? Because I feel like that for me is the biggest question, is if they can both remain in the percentile that they like to exist in as part of their game, will that have to falter a little bit now that you're adding that additional piece? That's my question. And if you do that, then does that by byproduct affect the success of the Pacers, at least when we're talking about that big three?
I don't think so. And let's just say that it does. I'd rather have Siakam than Turner anyway. And there's some value in Turner. You can go out. I mean, that's down the road. John, I'm with you in that I love it pre-agency. I love what they're building. Big two great players, whatever. Halliburton and Siakam, and that is let's build something. They're not going to win the whole thing this year. They're probably not going to make a conference finals. They can, right? So can the Knicks, so can the Heat, but that's not a likelihood. But I think that there may be, I have to see it. You never know when these guys integrate. You don't know. Like new players playing together takes a while. It's still taking a while with the Suns, even though they haven't played together a ton.
So what's your window?
Back in the day. I mean, the next 3 or 4 years, they're building a consistent winner in a market where that's hard to do. This year, they can be the 4th best team in the Eastern Conference. And
so
if that's
3 or 4 years, is this a championship team?
They're much more likely a championship team than they were before.
But if you had to put your money on either they are or they
I might put my money on anybody that doesn't have the, Giannis or Embiid.
Well, let's go through this because we're finally going to. Let's go through this. We're gonna get to see both Halliburton and Siakam with the Pacers tonight. Both of them are active. Halliburton's coming off that hamstring injury. Siakam missed that first game with Sacto or against Sacto after he got traded. So we get to see what this is going to look like tonight. But as we record this, prior to them playing in Portland this evening, they're 24-17. They're 7th in the Eastern Conference. They're in that play, and they've won 7 of their last 10, though. So I'm going to go through these teams that are just ahead of them, and we'll decide, does this move them ahead of the team that's already had? All right, so just ahead of them is the Heat. The Heat's a weird regular season team. We've seen them like kind of flounder during the regular season and then like kick it into high gear in the postseason. Does this move them ahead of the Heat?
Yes.
I can tell you this. The Heat don't think so. The Heat still think that they're one of the best teams literally in the NBA and that the whole model from last year.
Heat culture.
I'm with you, Ashley. I think it's close, and I want to see it. But yes, they're in that mix, and I would rather be the Pacers in a playoff series right now than the Heat.
I think if you were asking me this last year, and this trade was transpiring last year and against last year's Miami Heat team, I would say no. But this Heat team is not nearly as deep. They lost a lot of their outside shooting when those guys, Gabe Vincent and whatnot, went ahead and dispersed across the league. So Strus, right? Max Strus as well. So for me, it puts them ahead of them. And I hear what you're saying, Bill. They flipped that switch. I've seen it first up close and personal, but I don't feel like there's enough there right now for them to do that this year. I still think that this is a team that you don't want to have to face, speaking about the Heat, in a play-in scenario because they are scrappy and they do figure out a way to win. But if I'm talking standings and we're going number by number, the Pacers are definitely ahead of them right now, for sure.
I'm with you guys. I'd put the Pacers ahead of the Heat right now. Now, playoffs is different. If you're talking about a playoff series, then I'm probably taking the Heat because of the muscle memory. All right, what about the Knicks? Brunson went for 41 in a W versus the Wiz last night. Here's something I wanted to run past, just as a quick aside. Tibbs is already running OG into the ground. That was his third straight game last night with 43 minutes or more. Like, there's only 48 minutes in a non-overtime game. Somehow I think Tibbs is going to figure out a way to squeeze 49 minutes out of him.
Yeah, he's probably making him run 10 miles after the game too. We're just not seeing it
or something.
Yeah, right.
But do we like the Pacers better than the Knicks now?
I mean, similar range, right? Like I'll go short and let Ashley go because you're a Knicks person. You watch every single. Yes, I would rather be the Pacers than the Knicks.
I agree to a degree. So for me, I feel like the Pacers are better at playing their entire roster. I think that they play not only their starters, they also play their bench. My biggest concern about the Knicks is very much what we're talking about. Tibbs likes to run his guys ragged. He doesn't really like to go to the bench. Some may say he doesn't go to the bench because right now the Knicks don't have much of a bench. That's also an issue is, how reliable are the guys on your bench to relieve your starters, to relieve what they're exerting, but will they be able to hold on to a lead if you have one? Will they be able to go ahead and bridge a gap if that's necessary? I don't know if Tibbs trusts those guys enough, and if he doesn't trust them, he's not going to play them. There's also reports that Quentin Grimes may be on the move. They're still trying to move Evan Fournier. He got on the court yesterday, and it was just like, are you trying to sink whatever draft stock you have or whatever stock you have to be traded? Because he looked atrocious. I mean, he looked like someone who hasn't seen a court in like 8 months. It's actually insane. So in that regard, I would go Pacers by a small margin as well.
Let me ask you, let me rephrase it here. I think this is a fun way to do it too. Mm-hmm. Who's the best player on those two teams?
Jalen Brunson on the Knicks.
No, I'm saying if you had to pick, like you're gonna have a draft, is it Jalen Brunson? Is he better than Halliburton? And anything
I was going to ask him better than Halliburton.
You asked Wally, he is.
I don't.
Because I think it's probably Halliburton, but not by that much over Brunson.
Yeah, I don't think by that much.
And then you're wondering, I think I'd rather have Siakam than Julius Randle, but to the next guy. Ashley's point, the first 5 might be better for the Knicks, but they have 5 guys, right? I mean, like the bench, it's a thin team, and it's a thin team bench. Not only by virtue of how it's constructed, but also just by how Tibbs coaches. He gets his 5 guys, 6 guys, and that's it.
Yeah.
Here's the question. Does this addition make them markedly better defensively? Like, what is the improvement to add Siakam into the mix? Because they're poor defensively. They don't rebound particularly well. The guy's obviously long and athletic. We know he can score. So at the 4, I mean, you've got a lot of stuff. I think it's a noticeable addition to what they need, as well as being another star level guy who obviously takes a lot of scoring burden away from the other guy. I like the fit.
I think it's a fit offensively, but if we're talking defense, I mean, I wouldn't put them defensively ahead of the Miami Heat right now.
I just mean how much do they improve with Siakam defensively, which is their weakness, right?
I don't know if they drastically improve.
Well, where are they right now? I'm looking at the stats right now. The defensive rating, they're 27th.
So maybe
27, and they're bad, poor in terms of rebounding.
I don't know if
they're a bad defensive team.
If they are, I mean, when you're 27th, there's only 3 teams below you, right? But I would say if they could somehow get into the high 20s with Siakam, that would be a net win. I mean, that'd be huge because they're already one of the best offensive teams in the league.
It's clearly an improvement.
Do you not feel that right now with Siakam, they're not already in the top 20? Would you say top 25 now?
I don't know.
I mean, they're 27th defensively. So
I would say with Siakam, I would say they're closer to being in top 20 than they are outside of the 20, if that makes sense.
Here we're nibbling. I mean, it's a matter of degrees, though. They're not markedly better than the Knicks.
No, they're not drafted.
Yeah. They're better, and they're not. I don't think on the level of the 3 teams above them, but they did something bold, and there's still time for that for us to find out. Like, we've got to see what these guys look like together. How he fit.
Well,
I'm excited for tonight.
Hot take. Would you say that they're better than the Cavs?
Well, that was going to be my next one. That's where I think the rubber kind of hits the road here because 6 straight wins for the Cavs. Donovan Mitchell has been playing excellent. And the Cavs are ascendant right now, despite the fact that they haven't had Evan Mobley and Darius Garland for like large chunks of the season. And even when Garland was there, and even when Mobley was there, neither of them were having the same season that they had last year. So Donovan Mitchell is, I mean, Jared Allen's playing out of his head right now, and Donovan Mitchell is sort of bootstrapping this team. I wonder, like, what's the Cavs ceiling once the other two guys come back and the team is fully healthy? Like, is that all of a sudden
last year
a
I
team
thought
that
they
could
were a
potentially
conference
challenge?
finals. Yeah, I thought they were a conference finals level team. Yeah, I mean, like, kind of like sneaker. You're kind of betting the long. Yeah, but Donovan Mitchell.
Right now they're fourth. Do you think when it's all said and done, do you think that they're a fourth seed team in the East, or do you think they drop off a little bit?
I mean, we're talking just regular season. Yeah, they can be. The way they're playing is incredible, and they're missing two of their most important guys. Sure.
This is why.
But like, are we talking regular season or playoffs? Because to me, you have to combo that thing. You've got to be able to translate it to the playoffs.
This is why when I was saying on our last show, wouldn't surprise me if, right? The Celtics, I think, are quite clearly the best team in the Eastern Conference.
Yes.
The Bucks, despite their struggles, I would still put 2. After that, put the Sixers in there too. The Sixers, the Cavs, the Knicks, the Heat, the Pacers. Put them in the grab bag.
Are a class above those guys. No.
I disagree.
That's because you're emotionally damaged by the Sixers.
That's true. Okay, fine.
The Sixers are outstanding
if you want. But if you put the other teams into a grab bag and you pulled one out and said that's the team that's going to finish 4th behind the Sixers, that wouldn't surprise me.
I do think, though, right now, obviously the Pacers, are 7, so they're outside of the playoffs. I do think when it's all said and done, they're going to knock out, right? If Miami remains at 6, or I do think they creep into that last playoff spot, if not go a little bit higher. I don't think this is a play-in team. I think this is, by definition, good enough to be a playoff team. I think one of those teams currently in those last 3 spots won't be there when it's all said and done. My money would be on Miami.
You've got Miami. Bill, you pick a team that's not Boston and Milwaukee in the East.
Pick any team that's not. Are you still trying to keep the Sixers out of the mix? The Sixers.
I mean, they're
on the same level.
The Sixers will be there. They'll be there.
The Sixers still playing the East, right? That's a pretty good basketball team.
If you mean by being there the second round, I agree. All right, let's go to the Western Conference real quick, because Bill, you clearly hate the good people of Minnesota. You've disparaged them. Iowa. You've sullied their good name.
I'm glad it's cold there. My best friend lives in Minneapolis. Don't talk to him anymore.
They beat a depleted Grizzlies team last night, but they did win. They did win again. They keep finding ways to win. They're 2 games up on the Thunder. They're 2.5 up on the defending champion Nuggets. They're 3.5 up on the Clips that everybody is like gaga
Anthony Edwards
about
is a
right
star.
now.
Sure,
Anthony Edwards threw down a monster the other night.
Lob.
That was amazing. That was amazing. Yeah.
So why do you hate the Timberwolves?
Because I hate the entire state, as you noted. Look,
I'm just kidding.
I'm just kidding. I'm from Iowa. I love you, Minnesota. What are we talking about? Are we talking about, do I think Minnesota can be a top 4 team in the Western Conference, but when it's all said and done and make it to the second round of the playoffs? Is that like I should respect them? Because if so, then I just gave that exact same respect to the Pacers. They're the Pacers. Where they occupy space in the standings, I do not think signifies where they occupy space in the actual power rankings of the NBA.
This is drastically different. Though we're talking about a Pacers team that right now is the 7th seed and that will more than likely creep into a playoff spot. Whether it's 4 through 6, they're going to be there. We're talking about the Timberwolves, who in the Western Conference, there's a lot of talent. I mean, we're talking Thunder, Nuggets, Clippers, Mavs, Pelicans are playing well.
That's what I'm saying.
They're number 1 and they have been number 1. They're on a 4-game
The
winning
Denver
streak.
Nuggets were number 1 years ago and flamed
and they
out.
won
number 1 a year ago. Who was number 1 a year ago?
The Nuggets were 1
the
last
Pelicans
year.
And there were some injuries there, but like, look,
I'm not saying they're going to hoist the trophy in Minnesota anytime soon, but you don't think that this is impressive that right now, January 19th, 30-11 for a young team in the West?
Very impressive. It was cool. My son hit a shot the other day too, but he's not going to play professional hoops. My point is, he's short like I am. My point is, look, we're assessing, I think, this conversation, the Timberwolves, on the idea of, holy cow, as you said, they're first in a Western Conference lowest talent.
They're 21-6 in the conference.
I don't think that they're contenders. I think that if you bet on them to win an NBA championship, you're setting your money on fire. I think Anthony Edwards is an absolute star and they're going to get somewhere, but they are not good offensively this year. They're amazing defensively. I just think when you take all the other teams, and look, I'm a broken record, but it is what it is. You want to be an actual contender, be in the top 10 in offense, be in the top 10 in defense, have an absolute superstar, and maybe probably have a really good coach. They've got some of that. They are not a balanced basketball team, and they're not going to be in a conference finals when it's all said and done. So is that disrespect? I don't think so.
As longtime viewers and listeners of our show know, I'm a standings guy. We've been doing this for so long.
What does Bill Parcells say? You are what your record says you are. You are what your record
says you are. And they are first in the Western Conference. We're halfway through the season. At some point, Bill, you have to start believing your lying eyes. I was with you before this season. I looked at the Timberwolves and I was like, this is not gonna last. I was completely out. But at some point, I look at the competition that Ashley just rattled off, and they're not only right there, they're first. Now we're only halfway through the season, still, by my math, still have another half of a season to go, but still pretty good. I believe in them.
I'm frantically pulling up historical standings right now.
I don't think that I agree with you, Bill, in the sense that I don't think this is a team that's going to win a championship. I believe all roads lead through Denver, and that's a team that you have to beat in the West if you want to go ahead and win a championship. If you want to go ahead and hoist that trophy up, all roads lead through that team right there. I don't worry about the fact that they're 3. I think that that's a really, really good basketball team, even with losing some of the names that they had last season when they won. So for me, I'm not thinking that far ahead, but I got to give credit where credit is due. We're talking about a team that's 21-6 in the Western Conference with the reigning champs in the same conference at them, and they're 30-11. This is a young basketball team. Yes, they have their issues, but they've been holding steady at number 1 for a few weeks right now. I can't just, go ahead and ignore that.
Lakers last year made a conference finals. Were not a standings champion. Heat last year made it even further. We're not a standings champion. This time last year, because I just looked it up, in the top 4, right, which is sort of the standard we're talking about in the West, you had the Kings and you had the Pelicans. They were not postseason champions. There's a long history, if you're not one of like the true teams of the playoffs, I think being a little misleading sometimes. I think it's misleading right now. And I'm not trying to look, I'll move on, but I'm not trying to disrespect this team. I just don't think that they're good enough for me to be like, yeah, that's one of if I had to pick 2 or 3 teams that come out of the West and put real money on it or pride, it's not one of the teams I'm picking.
All right. Ashley and our mileage a little bit more on the Timberwolves, but if you are watching or listening to us in Minnesota, when we put Bill's name up, right underneath Bill's name,
Iowa.
His handle,
I love you guys.
Reiter, you could just directly, there it is. You could just reach out to Bill directly.
Curious. I would actually be curious before we move on. If you're not, obviously the Nuggets are a team. Who are the other 2?
So the Nuggets are going to come out of the West, barring massive injuries. Give me 2
more.
Give me the Thunder is like a really deep run. I think they're too young to win the whole thing. We talked about this the other day.
Okay.
And give me the Clippers to be a team that can make a really, really deep run. And I don't think either of the 2 are going to happen. But if the Warriors or the Lakers get right enough, and the Lakers are there right now, but are playing with a lot of momentum going into the play, if they're in the play-in, one of those teams will beat a team like the Timberwolves in a 7-game series potentially for the reasons that they've succeeded in the past.
So you're not an ageist.
I love you, Minnesota.
You're not an ageist. You just hate Minnesota.
Yeah, no, I hate that state. No, I'm just kidding. I love you,
Minnesota. Not abide by the Juicy Lucy's. I think this is actually great for basketball because if you take out the Boston Celtics and the Denver Nuggets, both conferences are as wide open, I think, as they've been quite some time. So it's been really fun. I want to run 2 more teams past you guys in the Western Conference before we wrap this thing up here. You mentioned the Lakers. There's been some rumors about maybe the Lakers are interested in Colin Sexton. I talked about this on HQ yesterday.
Yeah.
I think if the question is, would Colin Sexton help the Los Angeles Lakers? For me, the answer is unquestionably yes. The better question, I think, though, is what are the Jazz doing right now? And are they even going to sell? Because, look, they lost last night, finally snapped their 6-game win streak, but they're still 15-5 over the last 20. And Sexton has been a huge, huge part of that.
Amazing.
And there's been this kind of like build from the middle for these middle market teams approach. We just talked about the Pacers. They're doing it. The Jazz certainly seem like they're doing it. Markkanen's only 26. Sexton's only 25. They don't have to rush here. They don't have to sell anybody. Would you?
Let me ask you guys. Let me ask you guys a question. Just as a twosome, would you rather have Markkanen and Sexton than say Halliburton and Siakam? I mean, is that like, are those
No,
two guys?
Halliburton, Siakam.
Right. So I think right. So I think you do move one of those two dudes. It's not gonna be the Lakers. I mean, what do the Lakers even have to offer? I mean, like there are more
Austin
buyers
Reeves.
than sellers.
Just
Austin
kidding.
Reeves in what is the 29 pick?
Yeah,
Like,
I mean it's
Lakers aren't
limited.
doing
I
that.
mean, but they've been
not
so
doing that.
hotly attached to DeJounte Murray because for salary
Everybody.
matching purposes.
Right.
So I think like there's a move for the Lakers to make, and like maybe the Lakers can trade either their 29 or 30 pick. Obviously not
Right.
both because
But-
you can't do it in consecutive years.
Yep. But I think
but
that they're anticipating waiting for 29 or 31 for reasons that have to. Yeah, Lakers can trade either 29 or 30, right? Not both.
right.
Look, and you already brought it up. I think that if you're Danny Ainge, despite the spot you occupy in the plan right now, you have to evaluate. We're probably going to fall off.
Yeah.
If I'm him, I'm being a seller. It also depends, like how much do you value for this young core being in the play-in, having a game or two, maybe getting to a 7-game series as just a building block. And I think the answer is I wouldn't value it as much as just moving on from those guys in a market where more teams are going to be buying than selling. And maybe you can drive the price up on whichever these guys you want to move on from.
Yeah, I agree.
selling.
I mean, realistically, like the Jazz don't have to do anything because, like, let's look at right now they're sitting at 9th. Let's say you get the piece that you really, really want. Is it going to move the needle enough for you to climb out of the hole that you're currently in right now? No. Also, Utah is a very hard place to get people to want to go to. I mean, I don't know if any of you guys have been to Utah, but things close at 9.
I've been there.
I like
Now allow me
like
to
yeah.
Bill, you've already taken out Minnesota.
Yeah.
Allow me to besmirch Salt Lake City.
Wait, what's wrong with Salt Lake City?
I mean, aside from the fact that it's tough to get a beer over 4%, like it's. I mean, you have to go to a place with food and the whole bit. It's beautiful.
Cool
it's
spots,
beautiful,
man.
It's beautiful.
Why do you guys hate the people of Utah, though? I don't understand.
I'm with Ashley that's not Salt Lake City.
Do
is
you
not
want
a
to go
destination.
to Utah? Right. I mean,
it's not some place where people go.
Imagine.
I'm gonna sign there.
Imagine playing in Utah and you have like a great game. You're a 40-point game and you got your homies in town, your family's in town. You're from the East Coast originally. You're like, you know what?
Sure.
Let's go out and celebrate. Every restaurant is closed. It's 8:30 at night on a Friday.
Have you been to Oklahoma City? How come I'm catching this anti-Minnesota slander, but you guys can roll up and be like, oh yeah, Utah sucks. No,
I mean, they tried to poison Michael Jordan. Do you not remember that story? The pizza?
Yeah, well, probably. Or maybe
allegedly. Allegedly tried to poison.
Bill's right about Oklahoma City as well. Although I love the Thunder. League Pass, thumbs up on the Thunder. The city itself could take it or leave it.
If Mickey Mantle's is closed, there's nowhere to eat when a game comes to an end. I used to go into Mickey Mantle's back. It's like, and Durant would be there, like because he had nowhere to eat either.
Yeah, he needs to eat.
Right, he's like, he had the "What am I doing here?" look on his face, and hey, what's up, man? Maybe like, dude, don't talk to me.
No, it's like when you put the menu, in front of you, like, yeah, what's up, guy?
No, it's not. I'm selling.
Let me ask this though. So, because we're kind of lumping these two teams together, they're actually right next to each other in the standings in that 9-10 spot. Pick a team to go farther, Jazz or Lakers. Who's going to have the better season?
Lakers. Yeah, I mean. Obviously, when you have LeBron on your team, I think you always have to give them the benefit of the doubt over whatever team that they may be somewhat similar in record with, right? LeBron's the X factor. I do think, though, I would not be surprised given that LeBron is 39 years old and his window's getting smaller and smaller every single year. They also call him lead GM. They have to make a move to keep him happy, and he's going to make sure that move is made, whether it's the move that everyone thinks it's going to be, or it's going to be a smaller move, but it's going to move the needle in some way, shape, or form. A move will be made, and this team's not going to be, below the Jazz the entire season for sure.
Let me just say this. When the Lakers beat the Timberwolves in a 7-game series, and it's not the Jazz, you guys owe me, I don't know, a watered down beer or whatever you're talking.
We'll go to Salt Lake City. We'll have a watered down beer.
Yeah.
All right.
Look, Ashley's right that the best players on either of those two teams play for the Lakers, but I'd take both Anthony Davis and LeBron James over anybody else. If we're talking about the best team, I think the Jazz are the better team. I mean, they just because
okay.
Look, Lauri Markkanen's a very good player, but they also have a bunch of people around him who just know their role. They act as a team. Like it's the inverse.
In a
of last year.
7-game series, you're taking the Jazz
hot?
over the Lakers. In a 7-game series, you're taking the Jazz over the Lakers because that's what a better team is. It's not how many good players are there, how many
he's not taking them.
I mean,
he's
in a
not
playoff series, it becomes
this is not a better team.
It becomes a different equation. I'm saying, I wouldn't surprise me. Here we
Yeah.
are again. If the Jazz finish ahead of the Lakers during the regular season, now once we get into the playoffs, we'll see what happens.
No, Adam Silver, give me a direct answer. Are you taking them or you're not taking them?
You know what? I'm gonna take the Jazz because everybody knows
like this regular season crush you've got because
everybody knows that I am big on Utah, so I'm going to ride with my people of Utah.
You love that state,
and I'm going to go with the Jazz. I just think that Danny Ainge has this preternatural ability to assemble a team that's always bigger than the sum of its parts. Individually, Lauri Markkanen is the best player on that team. Colin Sexton has some trade value. Jordan Clarkson has some trade value. I like Keontae George. He came out of nowhere, right? He ends up being I think the 16th pick in the draft or something like that. And all of a sudden they might have a guy there. But none of those guys you'd look at aside from Markkanen and go, man, every team in the league would want them. And yet,
which is why they're like a play-in team. I mean, what do we? It's an over-heavy play-in team.
They're a play-in team right now because they had a slow start. 15-5 over the last 20 is not nothing.
Are they a play-in team though? Because right now, if we're looking at the play-ins, it's 7 through 10, right? So it's Phoenix, Jazz, Lakers, Rockets right now. That means are we completely ignoring the fact that the Warriors could make a push? So are you taking them out of the equation all completely?
So part of the reason I'm selling if I'm Danny Ainge is I think the Warriors are probably likely to make a push and I'm going to fall back. And part of the reason is what John, you just said. Danny Ainge always makes a better feast than the ingredients that he worked with, but he can go out and get better ingredients. And I trust him to do that, right? He's not on a clock. He's not like, oh my God, get it done by 2025 or I'm out of here. They're going to be good down the line because of him. I just don't think it's this mix. And by the way, if Sales is watching, can we get the Utah and Minnesota Chambers of Commerce's in their respective cities?
They're going to love us.
Brought to you by 3 people who hate us.
We're going
to don't put me and John in the Minnesota hate. We didn't do
No, Utah. You're on. No, you're going to make the sales pitch.
I don't hate Utah.
Chamber of Commerce.
I'm just bringing awareness to the fact that you can't eat after 8:30.
That place sucks. No, I like it. Now,
I like to eat after 8:30 too. We're going to go on a road trip to all of these different cities and it's going to be NBA outreach through the 3 of us. But for now, I think we'll leave it there. We got another couple of shows coming up next week. Everybody can check us out right here. You can find us at those Twitter handles below our names right there. This was fun, gang. I'm looking forward to seeing some basketball tonight. As we mentioned, Pascal Siakam is going to make his debut. Halliburton is healthy. It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun.
Don't go to
can't
Minnesota.
wait. All right. For Ashley Nicole Moss.
Think about Minnesota. Sorry.
And Bill Reiter. I am John Gonzalez. Everybody, thank you so much for watching.
Bye, guys.